The more and more I learn about the people who get ahead in this country have one or a combination of three things: business, stocks, or real estate. If you don't have one or more of these assets, it's impossible to get ahead. It's not completely impossible, but it's harder. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some success principles from Micheal. He made a fortune investing in financial companies like NCB Jamaica and AIC Limited. The native Jamaican acquired AIC in 1987 when it was less than 1 million in asset under management. Under Leachin, the Canadian-based wealth management and mutual fund business managed more than 10 billion in assets by 2002. But the firm was hit hard by the 2008 recession, and Leachin had to sold AIC to a Canadian financial services group in 2009 for an undisclosed price. He managed to hold on to a valuable 65% stake in NCB Commercial Bank Jamaica, which makes up majority of his wealth. Now, let's hear it from Micheal Leachin himself, how to build generational wealth.
My greatest fear is the following. Success begets, or the natural byproduct of success, you become successful, you become complacent. You stop doing the things that made you successful. You change the formula. And you become complacent or you become arrogant. I'm successful, look at me. I can do anything. Whatever I do is magical, right? That's not how you started. That's not how you became successful. So success begets complacency naturally, and you become complacent or arrogant, you're gonna fail. So success begets complacency, begets failure. So my fear is that my success doesn't lead me to complacency and stop me from and make me feel that I'm now different. Therefore, I should stop doing the things that made me successful in the first place. Firstly, you look for people with the right attitude, and the right attitude would be number one. We look for management with integrity, people who have integrity. Number two, they must have intelligence. And number three, they must be passionate and positive.
You know, you tell everyone, you know, likewise at your seminars, your road shows, make sure you have fantastic mentors. Through the life of Micheal, who really have you looked up to? You know, who has been your mentors and gotten you and just helped you along this kind of growth curve?
Well, firstly, my mother, because she led by example and she was closest to me. She's a high values person. She has and she, as I said, she leads by example. She's absolute in her values. She doesn't waver through thick and thin. So my mom is my number one role model, my mother. My business role model was and still is Warren Buffett. I was fortunate that I came across Mr. Buffett in 1978. And I've coded, since then, I've codified a three-step dogma for success. Number one, you want to be successful at any endeavor? You want to be the best pastor, the best prime minister, the best doctor, the best host? Three things you have to do. Number one, identify a role model. Who is that person? Who is the best in the world? I want to beat that person. Secondly, how did that person become so good? In other words, get the recipe. And then thirdly, don't put your thumbprint on the recipe. Don't change it. Do the same. If you follow those three steps, irrespective of what endeavor you're embarked on, the outcome will be the same.
Yes. Your story has been huge about building, you know, individual wealth, and you know, and your principles, as you said, go from decades ago, and building individual wealth, you know, family wealth, you know, your customers' wealth, and so forth. You know, a lot of Jamaicans want to know, and just persons, you know, if they're just starting to invest, would you suggest to them that they buy 3 stocks, they buy 10 stocks, they buy 15 stocks? You know, persons always have that question: should they diversify, over diversify? What would you tell somebody who just wants to start investing with all the investment craze now that's happening, you know, in the country?
So you had mentioned I have 5 principles pertaining to investing, the 5 laws of wealth creation. The first one is own a few high-quality businesses.
Yes.
The second one is make sure you understand them. So therefore, most people, they talk about diversification to spread the risk. But you're not going to make any money if you spread the risk too much, right? So you want to concentrate, right? The people who create wealth in our society are business owners. A typical business owner doesn't own 10 different companies. Your typical business owner owns one company and works every day to understand that one company to be better in delivering services or goods more effectively. Likewise, investing is no different. We should own things we understand, own things that we can say, 10 years from now, I'll give you a test. Actually, I'll give you a test, Mark. If you had a very wealthy uncle who said to you, Mark, I'm going to give you the opportunity to buy any 3 businesses in the world in their entirety. You want to buy Microsoft in its entirety? I'll write the check. You want to buy Google in its entirety? I'll write the check. Any 3, right? But once you've made your decision to buy, you cannot change your mind for 20 years.
Yes.
Right? The question is, what's the process you're going to go through to arrive at 3 answers? Because if you lose one, you lose 1/3 of your wealth. That process you're going to go through is the first question you're going to say is, I want to make sure the businesses that the 3 businesses that I own are going to be around 20 years from now.
Right.
Right? So therefore, that's my first cut. Right? Second cut is, I want to make sure that I understand it. Right? So that's the process you want to go through to arrive at 3 answers. Right? 3 companies to invest in.
Yes.
So think long term. Think what businesses you are assured of will be around for the long term, and make sure those businesses, importantly, are run by people with 3 characteristics. Number 1, they have integrity. Number 2, they're intelligent. And number 3, they're passionate about the business.
And, to that point, a lot of, young Jamaicans feel like, to really make it, they need to go overseas. That, the wages, the salaries here don't necessarily allow them to go on, have enough capital eventually to start their own business. What's your opinion there? Do you feel that, Jamaican can stay here, they can go and create their own capital base, they can get things going? This is a time to actually stay now, build, develop the country?
You see, I was fortunate that when I went to Canada, the financial services industry, especially the mutual fund industry, was embryonic.
Yes.
Right? The industry then had a total of $5 billion. Today, it has over 1.5 trillion. So I recognized that it was early on in the growth phase, right? Today, it will be very difficult for someone to replicate what I did because it's a different stage of maturity, the industry. Jamaica today, as far as I'm concerned, is the best place to invest because Jamaica is in transition. Jamaica is inefficient, right? And it's going from being inefficient to efficient, right? Jamaica, not only is it inefficient, but the competition here in Jamaica is not that great.
Yes.
Right? You go to, so for whereby in North America, you have efficiency, very efficient, capital is available, but Jamaica has capital also. You just have to know to access it.
And it's an important point. You're one of the world's few black billionaires, right? And when you see what you're now doing with the Economic Growth Council in Jamaica, the EGC, you're really giving back. And, in 2005, you put out a positive message. Anyone can own a stock. You can be a shareholder in the business. Going to these presentations, you're on the platforms, you said, anyone can be a business owner. If you walk us through, how can persons really, participate in owning, say, NCB shares?
Well, any share. Well, the minimum you can own is 100 shares, a board lot, what they call a board lot. If the share price is $50, 100 is $5,000. So with $5,000, you can be an owner of a business. You can be an owner of a business and in the case of NCB, the shares are now 150. So 150, $15,000. You can be a partner with the brightest minds in the financial services industry, not only in the Caribbean, in the world. right? You can be a partner with Patrick Hilton, Dennis Cohen, and the team at NCB, that is driven, that is prudent, etc. So you can be an equal partner, receiving dividends on your $5,000 or your $15,000, no different from Micheal Leachin with his ownership. So you're an equal partner. So it is the best way to really start developing a culture, and all of us, whether I'm a landscaper, I'm cutting grass, or I'm a coconut vendor, or I'm a professional, all of us, we in Jamaica have to get into the culture, the habit, the discipline of investing a part of all I earn.
So if you think about it this way, and in a different way, Micheal, is, the cook shop owner, the small farmer, anyone on the side of the street, at the end of the day, somebody who may say, my bank fees this month are too high, you have that slogan, own the bank. And
Yes.
so if they had shares in NCB, let's say with Cinco, let's say Jamaica Producers, and if they had that portfolio, when you think about it, they would have really outrun inflation over the last 10 years.
Yes.
And if you walked them through, why they should do that. Because what's fascinating is recently with the Wigton IPO, with the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance coming out and vouching for it, there's been tens of thousands of applications. But for years, with financial advisors saying, listen, please go and buy NCB shares, buy Wisynco shares, buy, X number of shares, as you said, any shares. It's taken a long time to get Jamaicans to get into the market. And why do you think that is, and what do you think, we can do going forward?
Because wealth creation has not been, historically, when we're in the socialist mentality, that was a bad word or a bad term. But wealth creation is the source of independence for yourself and your family, right? Wealth creation. So all of us, and you can only create wealth if you are confident. And if you're confident, you will start owning and owning assets. In Jamaica, two things we have to change. We have to start being what is called, we are dis-savers. Right? We're not saving, we're unsaving, basically. We get our money and we buy a car, right?
We have a high consumption.
We have a high consumption. We don't like to delay gratification.
We forward spend.
We forward spend, exactly.
Right.
We have to reverse that.
After selling mutual funds and being highly successful, became a businessman. You owned your own business. How did you go about raising this money? One of your principles is use other people's money prudently. Walk us through. How did you get this done and now become entrepreneur Micheal Leachin?
So now I was selling. I would cold call, I was selling. I did really well. I did really well at selling because I spoke to clients about their needs. I spoke to clients about creating wealth. And I made sure that the formula, what I said, I was consistent in what I did. That's the consistency. So we talk about principles, values, and then you actually do it. So the clients can say, well, what you're doing here, they can measure how close I am or how far I am from what I said. Right?
Yes.
So I did really well sticking to principles. Then I thought to myself, I'm selling. I would like to, I think, and therefore it led me to investing. Because you cannot create wealth by working, paying taxes, and then saving to become wealthy. You create wealth by investing. And I wanted to create a mountain of assets that would give me dividends so that I didn't have to work. Right? That's what I wanted.
Want to do,
Right? So I could be free from work. That's what I wanted. So the mountain of assets I didn't have. I had cash flow. So what I did, I went to the local bank and I said, look, I'd like to borrow $500,000, $500,000 back in 1983 and invest it in one company. A company by the name of Mackenzie Financial Corporation. It's a company that I used to sell their mutual funds. It was an asset management business. But I understood it because I was in the industry. So it met all the 5 criteria. So it's a matter of going back, defining your principles and making sure your behavior is in keeping with your principles. And it was very unusual. In fact, I didn't think the bank was going to lend me the money, the 500,000, because I was asking them to concentrate in their security into one stock. which doesn't seem prudent. But it was because of how I explained it to them, the principles, and the passion that I had, and the knowledge of the industry that I was investing in, that gave them confidence for them to say yes. That stock went from $1 in 1983 when I bought it. 4 years later, it was $7. So it went up 7 times. So 500,000 became $3.5 million. And that reinforced my philosophical principles, but it also gave me a financial base.
For how you got started.
That's how I got started.
And you continue to parlay that principle over and over again.
So I started off with cash flow, right? Then but I knew I wanted a mountain of assets. I went out and borrowed, but I had to. When you borrow, you have to make sure that what you invest in
is generating that cash flow.
Is generating cash flow, and it's solid. And you really understand it.
Right.
Because if you're going to concentrate, you minimize risk by understanding. Albert Einstein once said, "The eighth wonder of the world is compounding." Now, when most of us hear about compounding, we think money.
Yes.
Right? And simple interest versus compound interest. That's what we think. But it's actually very pertinent to every aspect of our life. Every aspect. And I'll demonstrate it to you. We're going to go back to the last time you did mathematics. Right? Y-axis, x-axis. Y equals x. What does that line graph look like? Right? Okay. Y equals x to the nth power. What does that line graph look like? Am I right? Y equals minus x to the nth power. Am I right? So now let's label the line graphs. Success. Therefore, negative y must be failure. And this is time. What this is saying, Mark, is if you, okay, of the line graphs, y equals x and y equals x to the nth power, this or this, which of these two line graphs would better represent people's expectations?
Well, especially what we're seeing now, Michael, is definitely, especially with younger Jamaicans over the last 5 years, they've only seen Jamaica like this.
Yes.
And so we're really seeing that with social media and everything now. This one here, we're really seeing that everything is this year.
Yes. So actually, this is not necessarily to a genre of people. It's relative to everybody else. People's expectations generally are linear. Right? They put, so what does this mean? If you take any of the component parts of success, effort, say, and so what you do, you'll be going up this line graph, putting out effort, get to this point in time, over time, you'd expect this amount of success, right? Right? Most people think, I put out effort, I should get a commensurate amount of success. It's linear.
Right.
You put out more effort, you continue going up the line graph to this point, get to this point in time, and you'd expect this amount of success, right? That's what people expect,
right?
In terms of effort, results. But question is, what in life is linear? Is relationship with your kids linear? Your employer linear? Your staff linear? Your pastor linear? Nothing in life is linear like this.
It's only when your parents are taking care of you.
Okay, exactly. And you get the regular monthly dividend, right? Or stipend. Most things nothing in life looks like this. In fact, most things in life are better represented by this, y equals x to the n, the compound curve.
Right.
In other words, you put out effort, you go along the curve here, you get to this point in time, you expect this amount of success, but actually, this is all you get. This is all the success you have actually reaped, experienced. So the difference between what you expect and this which you actually get is called frustration.
Yes.
Right? So he said, okay, I'm frustrated, but my mom says I should always persevere. So I'm going to continue I'm going to continue this endeavor, whatever the endeavor is. So I continue going up this curve. I get to this point, right? I expect now this amount of success, but this is all I've gotten. So now my expectations are much higher than the reality. What is the difference between what I expect and what I've actually gotten now? Called more frustration.
More frustration, yeah.
So what most people do is say, this doesn't work, and let me try something else. So they try something else, they start from 0, and they keep going back and forth. Age 65 comes, then game is up, time is up, no more time, right? Now, there comes a point, an inflection point, when between you start and you get to this point, you put out an inordinate amount of effort, but you get a disproportionately low amount of results, right? And that's when most people get frustrated. After this point, though, you start going up the gradient of the curve. When thereafter, you put out a little bit of effort and you get a huge, disproportionate amount of success. But most people don't get through to this point. The converse is also true. Y equals minus x to the n power. In other words, this line, you see, this is the bad behavior line. You can behave badly, right? You get to this point, you look back, I've been behaving badly for a long time, but no failure has shown up. So what do most people now do? They keep behaving badly. They get to this point, they still, no failure has shown up. But there's an inflection point here when you behave badly once more,
and boom,
and you go to jail.
Yeah.
Right? So this summarizes any and every endeavor. That once we're doing, that the question is, what are the characteristics we need to get us through the inflection point onto the other side, where we put out a little bit of effort and we get a disproportionate amount of success. What are the characteristics we need to persevere? We need 3 things. We need to make decisions based on having a sound framework, a religion, a culture that you are passionate about. That's number 1. Secondly, you need to be able to control your emotions.
Yes.
Right? And you can only control your emotions only if you have a value system, a framework, principles, your framework that is absolute. You're not going to violate it. And the third thing we need access. Access to good people, access to financing, access to role models, etc. So you need those 3 things in every endeavor of our life.
Oh, fantastic. And where, when you look at this, when you purchased NCB,
yes,
where do you think you got in on this curve?
Oh, well,
because I know within a few years you got the profits.
When I purchased NCB, I was already successful in Canada, right? I was already, that's the reason I could have purchased NCB.
Right.
So I was somewhere close to here.
Right.
But now, today, NCB just, as I said, we just completed a transaction that is nearly $500 million US dollars. So we now have NCB and the Guardian together. That now gives us a lot of leverage. So
if you looked at this and put it into some perspective, especially what we're seeing so much in Jamaica now, and if there is a business that is, the stock exchange spoke about maybe launching a micro exchange.
Yes.
But if there's a businessman and he has 50 million Jamaican in sales, 100 million Jamaican in sales, and he's struggling to understand governance and why is he being asked by his CFO to do this and everything, and he's maybe somewhere here. Difficult to get access to finance, to mentors. What's your advice to that person?
To go back to the fundamentals of being a successful professional or successful business. Number 1, we have to make sure that we do 3 things right, really well. The first is we have to make sure every day we think about how am I differentiating myself in business as a professional. Differentiation. Because if you don't differentiate yourself, you're going to end up like everybody else, a commodity. And the antidote to being a commodity is to differentiate yourself.
And so whether you make a lot of noise, you dress differently, how you carry yourself, but just something.
Or your passion,
that makes you different.
Belief. The first thing is differentiation.
Right.
The second thing is your behavior as a professional or as a business should be such that you every day make sure you're burnishing your reputation and you do nothing to tarnish it.
So as Buffett says, you can make it, or you can lose it in just a few minutes.
Exactly. And the third thing is As a professional, as a business person, the prime focus, lots of noise every day, but the prime focus is we should be thinking about how to solve clients' issues. And if we do all those three things, and we focus on those three things, and those three things become our religion,
right,
we'll get through the inflection point naturally.
Perfect.